forces in an actual fight. Strategic place of their boxes to kind of control the way they move. So if you get there anymore, right, the taco time will come back up.
Hostage for a little bit. Use that little bit of leverage to bait out a team. Turn that into, because one of the cons of going on offense is you expose yourself. You're out there, you're building. And in those situations, that's where you get traded shots. But here, we're looking at retail row. This is what we wanted to focus on. NM7, FHD, and Young specifically have been hitting some disgusting shots over the course of today. The heavy sniper we know to be a favorite. Teams only run with one sniper. We've seen multiple players picking up snipers on this squad.
Yeah, the biggest thing about the sniper as a power weapon, as a win condition type of weapon to make moves off of, when you have shockwaves, you can see right now in the inventory, right? Let's just take this example. You only have 2 chances to use that shock. You miss with a heavy snipe, depending on your heavy ammo count, which gets found in much bigger, varieties of 7, 13 ammo spread around the map. You have so many more opportunities to land that heavy sniper throughout any point in the game. It's more expendable, which means you can play off of it so much more frequently.
That's right, and just taking a look here, Yonks is going to get a nice little power upgrade to the loadout there as he picks up a blue pump shotgun. So you know the confidence is in their favor. They're actually glancing over at the Black Ops. They're not quite sure. They saw a little bit of aggro zombie movement, from the Fiends here, kind of lingering about, and because of that, they were cautious. They knew a team was here when we first checked in with them. Seems like the coast is pretty clear, and now they're gonna focus on taking out the pylons here.
Yeah, one thing I actually wanted to talk about, we noticed Retail and Greasy coming in, right? We also made that little mistake with the houses. The big thing, though, to note about that, a lot of these house layouts are very similar when you're looking at it inside. And with new POIs, suppose you are a team that goes Retail and it's so contested. Moving over to Greasy and having that similar layout, knowing exactly how to play those buildings, and as well looking at what are the power buildings in the POI. How does that kind of change the way you adapt to it versus a team that's not their monster?
I mean, you absolutely need to know your layout. It's one of the perks of mastering a place and playing off a place for long periods of time. Now, let's just say if things were to just change and something new is to show up, that could be a big issue for some of the competitors. But hey, the best of the best adapt, and someone's going to figure out how to make it work, right?
Absolutely. You get the experience of playing in Retail, apply it to Greasy. You might just get a whole new drop spot, right? Yeah, there's taco time. Hey, that's free shields. That's, as you said, the free utilization of having a knockdown teammate, just staying alive. It's huge things you can play off of. We're going to be looking at a Polar Peak team right now. Also a very interesting POI that's been developed kind of in the meta game over this whole season. In the beginning, not many people wanted to land here, not seeing the actual potential of loot, as we did lose the big castle, but gained so much more map space and movement vertically around the map and actual sight lines towards Frosty, towards the cabins at the back, and even Happy Hamlet takes shots at people who are up here from Polar.
Yeah, Polar Peak has always been one of those power spots to hold. You have this super high elevation. You have loads of rotation opportunity. And you can see here, it's been so long since we watched early game. I haven't even seen a team execute a proper kind of float across to Big Tree like that, right? So these are the small things that I nerd out over specifically is rotations, figuring out how people play their drop spots and figure out their loot situations. Something cool to note, guys, you actually don't take fall damage if you were to fall off a high place with the hoverboard.
You've got all the factoids down, man. These guys,
I play a lot of
tips. Let's go, Monster.
Just something to think about. So don't panic, guys. If you ever want to really make an aggressive dive and push, it's actually a perfect opener to come in on the hoverboard. You are exposed, but you can jump off at any elevation, any height. And if you fail, it's okay. You'll be all right.
That's one thing you also pointed out on. It's actually Heat 1 Game 4 from the Middle East at the moment, which is a whole new slew of players that we're going to be seeing, because we were watching Heat 2 previously, so we'll see how this Heat panned out, how the end games kind of differ. Before, we saw a lot of top-down shooting vertically, not many people challenging it late at all, a lot of miniguns, a lot of AR spam. Once that 7th zone kind of passed, it was free reign for those people on height. It's just about how many points can you efficiently accumulate. So now we'll see what are some of the other different type of win conditions, endgame Monster, that you've seen in Comp Fortnite.
Hey, I mean, the name of the game is to earn points regardless. You see squads that like to execute Zone 6 for high ground and then dominate, right? Put pressure down, dictate the pace of the game. You see other players that tend to kind of hold mid-ground tarp, hold down on shockwaves, and then make big moves towards the tail end, try and secure high ground, right? All of which are risk and reward plays. Personally, I think the scariest type of play style is going for height early. Those players that have the guts to go for Zone 6 high ground, you're risking all of your material at the expense of going for elims, which aren't guaranteed to you. and then you're trying to control the pace of the battle, which again, some people struggle, right, in those situations, because if you don't do it properly, the server will turn on you, and now all of a sudden you're losing.
Yep, there's so many teams alive near the end of the game. There's always one that can sense the weakness on height.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're not double tarping anymore. Your metal switched to wood. Here's an opportunity. Where's the spam?
You're not hitting me. So
yeah.
Like, now it's time to fire back and set up those countermeasures. And that's one of the kind of tug of wars that these teams in trio, Sidig, MS, Idij, and Rampage here, and looks like they are looking to battle here. So the team that we saw at Greasy here was already rotating out, and in comes the fire. So just exposing themselves, no fear at all, just fearless out in the open, using a little bit of ducking there, kind of trying to naturally avoid some shots here. The shield bubble comes down. Invoke is on a weird position here. And up he goes for the high ground right now, and that's a shockwave. He's going to leave his backside open. He's going to suffer all of his shield right there. It's going to be very painful.
Now, one big thing to notice in this breakdown is on approach, Rampage, Sidig, and M-Sidig all together were doing a 2-1 breakdown at all times. They always made sure there was one person a little bit higher, kind of switching roles to make sure they had that 2-1 split. And you see it in this fight. It's two people on a wall on one opponent. Then you have the breakdown of one person supporting up top. Right now, Rampage is in the big fray of the fight. Not sure exactly where his teammates are, but you can presume if he's on a wall, there is a teammate there to respond. Kimmy responds to the bullets by going absolutely knocked down in that state, and now going to be getting siphoned by his teammates. Now everyone grouping together. This is very good use of timing in the fight, because when you're split, you do have a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of risk involved. Now coming back together, if someone tries to peek you, you have 3 people aiming in. It's very good use of splits and regrouping.
Yeah, and something to learn from that battle, guys. If you notice how quickly it ended, is because they managed to just isolate. They isolated the player, they hunted him down, they forced him into a frenzy to build up for high ground, and that was the first pick. After that, the rest of the team just kind of fell in suit, trying to play catch-up to save their teammate. But we've seen a wonderful story of Minzu, Kinji, and Boxfighter Moon all day today. They had high ground. They took second place in the first game we watched, in a crazy turnaround and some shockwave plays that were made towards endgame. But we know they've been making it to the end, and they weren't on our radar previous to this. So to see Minzu, Kinji, and Boxfighter Moon here finally making a little stake of the claim for fame here on the Fortnite competitive scene is really nice. This is one of the awesome things about being able to check out these new regions and give people opportunity.
Absolutely. This is the breakthrough moment at the moment. We've seen them be really good early game in Happy, but now they have the worst possible zone rotating in. It looks like it's pulling all the way up to the right side of the map, so they will be having a mid-game fight. Very smart use of utility, making sure with Stinks you can actually track where your enemies are through that damage tick through the wall. Now you can see them actually responding after getting that first elim. This is what we're talking about earlier in the day. When you have a stink, it's not usually used to grief, but to gather info and then act upon afterwards. So now they're full body sending it straight into the box fight. As they're doing it, another 2 teams come up from the top. It's a huge mishmash at Grandma's house in the middle of the map. A lot of teams should be rotating through here. They might get even more action as Kinji goes down.
That's what I want to talk about. It was the aggression, the fearlessness. Moon actually jumps into a 1v3 battle for high ground build. He held it down, but unfortunately Kinji's going to get traded out here as Minzu was in the low ground trying to figure things out. And now suddenly, because they didn't, pull back the reins and play it patient here, they found themselves in another battle. But looks like these things are putting into great work as they catch another small pick there. And they managed to fend off everyone. So we'll see if they can get the reboot card, maybe pull out a clutch save at some point or another. But teams are in shambles here.
Absolutely. You touched upon it earlier where, we're happy to see these early games. And, in comparison to all the late games we always see, it's dope to cast a huge early to end game. One big thing that applies to both early and end game.
He's going in the zone, by the way.
Is timing. And this is a big use of timing right here, right? We do have a minute 14 till the zone moves. You do want to pick your teammate up, but now you're messing with not just one, but 2 resources. First of all, you're losing a lot of time and positioning on the zone, as well as HP pools coming in. You do have a lot of loot you did gain from the fight that these guys just had, and slurps to tick through, but the stuff you use early to pick yourself up, you will not be able to utilize in the end game. So time is shared across both early and end. It's both affected. We don't usually get to see it used at the end game, but every decision you make, maybe they wouldn't have had that mid-game fight if they were faster off their looting, right? So seeing exactly how they move across the map, how they utilize time, can actually get into where they are in the middle and end game of their gameplay.
Yeah, so they sent one player out to go kind of, obviously get that revive, and then they stood or they left Moon back behind to, you know, be that presence on the build on this skeleton that remains of what the fight was, so that the team below, you know, is cautious. They don't necessarily, you know, want to move or get that freebie rotation out of there. So the whole team is back. Now they're able to reap some of the rewards here, the loot that remains, and suddenly they're all back in action here. Now with that launch pad there, they are going to be okay to get the rotation. But remember, he did catch a knock, so notice they just want to go ahead and take a peek, see who's left here. What kind of loot can they still kind of grab up before it's time to go? And it's a short rotation, so they don't need the launch pad either. Looks like they are going to decide to probably go on foot here.
Short rotation, definitely risky, though. There are 65 people alive right now in the circle. Placement is a long ways away. Looks like Zanzis might be the last person in the trio from this fight, or one of the trios trying for him.